So we will be picking up where we left off, reading from the, of course, Ramayana, seen from earlier. So invoking the guidance of our spiritual masters to help us out with reading in. Mungkin natin meron siya ginagawa sa kaya. Ito na natin yung pasmas ng mga yung lahat. Wish you the right to understand dito dito sa Devamrita Swami ito namin. Wish you the right to understand dito sa Devamrita Swami ito namin. Namaste sa Sarvati Devamrita Swami Viseshan Devamrita Swami. Hare Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaurabhakta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Rama Rama. Okay, so catching off from the last meeting earlier this morning by Mother Rita Shakti. And let me know if the audio is clear, so that way we can of course adjust. Alright, so Ramayana. Rama felt extremely pleased with Hanuman and was grateful for his invaluable service. Praising him, Ram said, "Except for Garuda, no one else could have accomplished what you have done. The best servant is one who, entrusted with a task, accomplishes more than is required. Capable but mediocre servants never venture beyond their tasks, and third-rate servants, though qualified, neglect their master's orders. Dear Hanuman, not only did you find Sita, you comforted her with your words. You surveyed Lanka, tested the Raksasa warrior's strength, and struck fear into Ravan's heart. Indeed, your service has practically saved my life. I cannot properly reward you because I am in exile, and that pains me. In my exile, the only thing I can call my own is my ability to embrace you." And Rama affectionately pressed Hanuman to his heart. Turning to Sugriva, Rama changed his tone, saying, "Now we know where Sita is, but how will the monkeys cross the ocean?" Sugriva said, "My lord, cast off your grief. Without enthusiasm, all activities become sources of misery, and once grief-stricken, one fails in all endeavors. I am enlivened by the prospect of fighting Ravan, and the monkeys are out to the task. Why not build a bridge across the ocean? Once the monkeys get to Lanka, they will come out victorious." Ram said, "The sun is now at the meridian, so the auspicious time called Avijit has arrived. This is a good time to begin a military campaign. Besides, my upper right eyelid trembles, which indicates victory. Let us assemble all the monkeys and march at once." Lakshman and Sugriva applauded Ram's suggestion. Within moments of being summoned, hordes of Vanaras emerged from caves and wooded slopes. Ram arranged the army, and Sugriva passed on his orders to the others. At the center of the formation, Ram would ride on Hanuman's back, and Lakshman on Angada's sword. The army set out towards the south. During their march, the monkeys exhibited bravado by roaring like lions and leaping up and down. Sometimes they somersaulted or rode piggyback, and sometimes they sportingly threw each other about. Cheerfully and playfully aggressive, the energetic monkeys slashed their tails as they uprooted plants, dislodged great stones, and clambered up and down hills. Lakshman told Rama, "Notice the auspicious signs, a cool, fragrant breeze at our back, pleasant sounds from the satisfied forest animals, serenity toward the land, and the bright sunshine." The army marched on day and night, for it was eager to fight for Sita's release. During the expedition, the monkeys bathed and played in mountain lakes, ate fruit and roots, and drank forest honey. At last, arriving at Mount Mahendra, Ram climbed on its peak. There he could direct his fine, pensive gaze past the surf's crash and drag to the dark blue waves of the horizon. Ram rejoined his monkey army, and all marched on till they halted on the shore. Ram felt to breathe. "We are now faced with a problem we have long feared. How do we cross this vast expanse of ocean? Let the monkeys camp in the forest while we devise the means to reach Lanka." As they busied themselves towards setting up camp, the hordes of monkeys resembled a second ocean with tossing brown waves. In awe, some monkeys' leaders gazed at the vast ocean, with Lanka on its far shore. Somewhat stunned with astonishment, the monkeys, with unblinking eyes, tried to fathom this impassable stretch of wave-clashing, wind-whipped water, infested with monstrous aquatics such as huge whales and the monstrous aquatic timingalas that swallowed them. In a quiet moment, Ram said to Lakshman, "Usually time slowly lessens grief, but in my case, daily my anguish increases due to separation from Sita." Meanwhile, in Lanka, having witnessed Hanuman's devastating prowess, Ravan called together the leading Rakshasas. In that assembly, the Rakshasa king said, "Impenetrable Lanka has been ravaged, my place ruined, my palace ruined, and many of the best Rakshasa warriors killed. Authoritative opinion regards good counsel to be the root cause of victory, and that is exactly why I have summoned you. There are three classes of men. A wise man will take advice from superiors and friends with a common interest before he initiates any significant task. Then, according to the advice received, he will exert himself wholeheartedly and depend on destiny for the result. A mediocre person, however, thinks over a matter by himself and considers things with his own intelligence before acting. The vilest of men have no faith in destiny and act whimsically because they lack a sense of duty. Unable to properly judge what is beneficial and harmful, such blind persons say, 'I shall do it, come what may.' Similarly, there are three kinds of advice. Good advice is in agreement with religious principles and is given after an objective study. Mediocre advice emphasizes limited self-interest and is given a half-heated discussion. And bad advice does not consider the ultimate consequences. It is given out of pride and flattery. Quite soon, Ram will attack Lanka along with his vast monkey army. He showed his prowess at Janastana, and undoubtedly he will easily cross the ocean. Ignorant of Ram's strength and eager to please, the Rakshasas flattered Ravan by assuring him that he could easily dispose of any adversary. Overconfident Rakshasas boasted that they could annihilate the approaching enemy themselves if so ordered. But Bibhisan said, "Dear brother, the wise have advised that violence is a last resort to be engaged only after other tactics of conciliation fail. Even when violence succeeds only against those who are evil, unwary, doomed by fate, or already under siege by another enemy. Ram is supremely powerful, virtuous, and eager for revenge. How can you hope to defeat him? Sita's abduction is the root cause of our present crisis. You had better return her before Ram destroys Lanka and its inhabitants." Having heard Bibhisan's advice, Ravan dismissed the assembly and left. The next morning, Bibhisan told Ravan, "Dear brother, ever since you brought Sita here, we have been plagued by many inauspicious elements. The sacrificial fires merely smoke and give off sparks. We often find snakes in our kitchens and sacrificial arenas. Some sacrificial offerings become infested with ants and crows perch atop palaces, while vultures incessantly hover above the city, and female jackals ominously howl during the mornings and evenings, all because he kidnapped Sita. O Ravan, your only means of atonement is the immediate return of Sita to Ram. Your ministers simply flatter you, afraid to displease you, but I advise you in earnest. Overwhelmed by a passionate desire to enjoy Sita, Ravan became angry and shouted, I fear neither Ram nor anyone else. I will never return Sita. Once again, Ravan summoned his ministers to discuss what should be done. Mahaparshva, a leader, asked, O king, why should one not taste honey procured with great endeavor after scouring snake-infested forests? Who prevents you from forcibly enjoying Sita? Ravan said, my hesitation has a history I have kept secret. Now I will disclose it to you. Long ago, I saw the incomparably beautiful Kundikashari, one Apsara, on her way to offer respects to Brahma. The sight of her inflamed me with desire, and I raped her. I let her go, and she ran naked to Brahma. Learning what I have done, Brahma became so furious that he cursed me. You wretch, if you ever attempt to rape a woman again, your head will split into 100 pieces. So, Mahaparshva, I shall not force myself on Sita, but as for Ram, he does not frighten me. I am the most powerful being in the universe. Obviously, Ram is ignorant of my prowess. Bibhisana said, Ravan, can't you see that Sita is like a poisonous snake that you have placed around your neck? Use your good intelligence and return her to Ram before she causes Lanka's destruction and our annihilation. I assure you that no Raksasa warrior can stand before Ram and live. Terribly annoyed by his uncle's words, Indrajit retorted, Bibhisana, you coward, you eunuch, your advice, devoid of courage and heroism, utterly disgraces this assembly. Ravan, equally wary of Bibhisana, scolded his youngest brother. It's better to live with enemies or poisonous snakes than with a traitor who claims to be a friend, especially a brother. You confirm the truth that relatives relish one's misfortunes the most. From cows we obtain milk, in Brahmanas we find tapas or austerity, and in women, fickleness, and by relatives we are put into danger. Bibhisana, you are envious and thus cannot tolerate the honor I am given. Anyone else speaking like you would have immediately met my blade. Wretched brother, you disgrace our noble family. This rebuke provoked Bibhisana. He rose into the air along with his 4 followers and declared, You are my superior, but I will no longer tolerate your words, for you have chosen the path of irreligion. Ravan, I advise you and hope to save you from Ram's wrath, but you have rejected my words. You do as you like, but I will no longer remain with you. Follow your flatterers and despair. Within an hour, Bibhisana and his followers reached Ram's army. When the monkeys saw Bibhisana hovering overhead, Sugriv said to Hanuman, These Raksasas must have come to kill us. Quickly, the monkey uprooted trees, picked up rocks, and awaited Sugriv's orders. But Bibhisana announced, O king of the monkeys, I am Ravan's youngest brother. I repeatedly advised the king to return Sita to Ram, but I was rebuked. I have now left my wife and children to come here, to take shelter at Lord Ram's lotus feet. Please inform him. Sugriv went to Ram and said, A Raksasa has come. He says that he has deserted Ravan, but I don't trust him. He must be a spy. If we trust him, he may do us great harm. I suggest that we kill him. Others gave their views, but then Hanuman, gifted with the art of fine speech, wisely said, Bibhisana wishes to sincerely take shelter of Lord Ram. He understands that Ravan is thoroughly wicked and that Ram is the supreme emblem of purity and righteousness. Bibhisana's peaceful demeanor and considered speech clearly hint at the honesty of his purpose. For the deceitful person cannot remain so perfectly composed. It is impossible for anyone to fully conceal inner intentions, because facial expressions always give clues about one's thoughts. Without qualms, we should accept Bibhisana as our ally. Hanuman's speech pleased Ram. Still, Sugriv meekly protested. Maybe he was sent by Ravan. To be safe, we should either capture or kill him, otherwise if we trust him, he may turn on us. Ram smiled and said, Do you really think that this Raksasa could harm me? With my fingertip, I can kill all Raksasas and demons. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is my eternal principle that if anyone takes shelter of me, saying even once, I am yours, then I award that person freedom from fear. Even if Ravan would surrender to me, I would Hearing this sublime statement, Sabri's heart filled with love. Tearfully he admitted, "Dear Ram, your words and deeds are always befitting your supreme position. Now I also feel that Bidusan is sincere. Let us make friendship with him." Assured of his safety, Bidusan descended and fell down at Lord Ram's lotus feet and assured Ram that he would help him conquer Lanka. When Ram, being satisfied with his devotee, warmly embraced Bidusan, the monkeys felt overjoyed. Witnessing the Lord's extraordinary mercy upon the Raksasa, the merry monkeys loudly cheered. Hanuman and Sugriv said, "O Bidusan, we feel confident about fighting the Raksasas, but we are perplexed about crossing the unfathomable sea. Could you advise us?" Bidusan replied, "I suggest that Ram call upon the ocean god." Previously, King Sagar, Ram's forefather, excavated the earth and extended the ocean's domain in the process. Out of gratitude, the ocean may help Ram accomplish his mission. Ram considered it an excellent suggestion, but to honor Sugriv, he said, "I will do whatever you and Lakshman decide." Since Sugriv and Lakshman agreed with Bidusan, Rama went to the beach and sat on a mat of kosi grass, his face turned seaward. Then with joint palms, Ram solicited the ocean god, determined to reach Lanka by any means, prepared to kill the god, should he not cooperate. And after 3 days and nights there was still no response, Ram became furious. Addressing Lakshman, Ram said, "Now I see that good qualities like patience, forgiveness, politeness, and simplicity are useless when encountering wretched people without a trace of virtue. Such persons respect impudence, aggression, harsh speech, and restless, unquiet people who advertise themselves with self-praise. Because of my mildness and forbearance, the ocean god considers me powerless. He does not even deign to come before me." Lakshman, "Kanimabo, I will teach the ocean god a lesson. Watch as I dry up the water, our monkeys will march to Lanka on foot without difficulty." His anger ablaze, Ram sprung the bow and twanged it with such force that the earth trembled. Ram shot arrows deep into the water. This agitated the ocean, whose high tossing waves terrified the creatures under the water. Next, when Ram invoked the supremely powerful Brahmastra, Lakshman put his hand on Ram's bow and said, "Dear brother, please restrain your anger. There must be a nobler means of making a pathway to Lanka." Ignoring Lakshman's plea, Ram put up the Brahmastra and loudly threatened the ocean god. "I will dry up all your water and turn you into a desert since you are too proud to render me service. I will wield my own prowess so the monkeys can cross you on foot." Angrily, Ram drew back his bowstring, and as darkness enveloped the sky, heaven and earth trembled, raging winds and uprooted trees and tore off mountain peaks, lightning and hundreds of meteors streaked across the sky. Although the ocean overflowed, terrifying all creatures, Ram was unmoved and determined. Suddenly, the ocean god rose from the water and stepped onto the shore. Giant alligators, tortoises, and fish were thrown up with the billowing water around him. Surrounded by many serpents with flaming mouths and followed by the goddesses of numerous rivers such as the Ganga and Indus, the god stood before Ram, decorated with gold finery and a red garland, dressed in red and encircled by wind and clouds. The god approached Ram with joined palms. He said, "O gentle descendant of Raghu, earth, water, fire, air, and ether eternally have their natural characteristics. I am a great reservoir of water, by natural, unfathomable, and uncrossable. O Ram, I will make a unique concession for you to cross. If you construct a bridge, I will support it with my energy and make it float. This the hordes of monkeys can attack Lanka, and you can recover your dear wife Sita. Here is Nala, the son of Vishvakarma, the celestial engineer and architect. This powerful monkey is your great devotee and is as talented as his father. He will oversee the construction of your bridge." Having said this, the ocean god disappeared while Nala came before Ram. Offering his obeisances, Nala said, "Forbearance, conciliation, and gifts are wasted on ungrateful persons. I know that the ocean god has granted you passage out of here. Dear Lord, I suggest that the monkeys gather the required materials so we can soon begin work on the bridge." So under Ram's supervision, all the monkeys entered the forest. Clearing off all great rocks, uprooting trees, and unearthing whole hills, they brought all they had gathered to the shore. It was a magnificent sight. The waters splashed high when all these huge stones and trees were thrown into the ocean. In this way, they started constructing an enormous bridge 1,500 kilometers long and 150 kilometers wide. The surface was smoothed by lining up tree trunks and covering them with branches full of blossoming flowers. As the construction went on, Bibisan and his ministers kept guard on the shore. On the first day, the monkeys completed 200 kilometers. 300 kilometers were more constructed on the second day, 320 on the third day, and 330 more were added on the fourth day, until on the fifth day the work was finally completed. But behold the wonderful bridge, which looks like the Milky Way spanning a deep blue sea, demigods and celestial sages assembled in the sky. Sugriva requested Ram and Lakshman to mount the backs of Hanuman and Angada, and within a short time, the entire army, consisting of innumerable monkeys, began its march. Reaching Suvila mountain on the north shore of the island of Lanka, the monkeys became jubilant. Sugriva set up camp, and all the great demigods and sages bathed his king of the monkeys with water from sacred rivers and blessed him. Ram told Lakshman, "Keep the army alert. I see omens portending the death of many great heroes among the monkeys, bears, and Rakshasas. Fierce winds raise dust clouds, tremors run through the earth, blood rains from the dark clouds, the twilight is heavily tinged with red, and wild animals cry in pitiful tones." Excuse me. "Well, Lakshman, I think we should immediately begin our march." Soon the monkeys were mobilized, and as they approached Lanka, the Rakshasas heard their loud roars. Gazing at the golden city magnificently perched on the top of the Trikuta mountain, Ram's thoughts turned to Sita. Ram then ordered military commanders to arrange the army in human-shaped formation with himself and Lakshman at the head. All the monkeys picked up the big trees and massive boulders. Meanwhile, Ravan called for Vidyujiva, a master of conjuring tricks, and told him to create an illusory head of Ram in the perfect imitation of his powerful bow and arrow. "We will go to Sita in the Asoka grove, and you will remain hidden there. When I call for you, bring me your magical creations." Eager to see Sita, Ravan hurried to the grove, and standing before King Janaka's unbanished daughter, Ravan announced, "Rama has been killed by my commander-in-chief. Give up your stubbornness and become my beloved queen. I will tell you what happened." Exhausted after crossing the ocean, Ram, Lakshman, and all the monkey soldiers fell asleep on the shore at nightfall. In the darkness, great Rakshasa warriors slaughtered the monkeys as Rama slept. Prasta cut off his head. Lakshman, Hanuman, and many other monkey chiefs were also slain. All others managed to escape. This is the truth, noble lady, and I never brought Ram's preserved head to prove it. Ravan called for Vidyujiva. Within moments, the conjurer appeared with an illusory head of Ram and also a bow and arrow. Ravan declared, "Behold your husband's blood-stained head. Vidyujiva, give her Ram's severed head. Let her see the remains of her mortal husband." Vidyujiva placed the illusory head of at Sita's feet and hastily departed. Ravan took the invitation weapons and threw them in front of Sita. Ravan commanded, "Submit to me. You have no hope." The features of the illusory head exactly resembled Ram's, so when Sita saw it, she piteously cried out, "O Kaikeyi, this is the result of your evil plans. Your cherished goal is now fulfilled. You must be happy." Sita's sobbing shook her entire body. She fell unconscious like a banana tree uprooted by a strong wind. When Sita came to, she sat beside the illusory head and lamented, "O Ram, bereft of you, I am a widow, and so my life has also become to an end. There is no greater disaster for a woman than her husband's death before she dies. Oh, I am so abominable because of my husband's death. He crossed the ocean for my sake, and now he is dead, without even a fight. On our wedding day, he married no one but his death. I must have obstructed the marriage of some poor girl in a previous life, only to suffer the consequences in this life. O Ram, will you get to the next world without me?" Sita turned to Ravan and said, "Take me to Ram's body. When I place my body upon this, you can kill me so I attain the same destination as my husband." At a moment, a messenger arrived to inform Ravan that Prahasta urgently requested his presence. As soon as Ravan left, the illusory head and weapons also vanished from Sita's sight. Entering the assembly, Ravan ordered the mobilization of his army and war preparations began. Meanwhile, Saram, Vibhisan's wife, went to the Asoka Grove to console Sita. Saram had already befriended her at Ravan's urging, to prevent her premature death caused by grief. Saram said, I was hiding nearby, so I saw and heard everything. Ram is not dead, please believe me. The head you saw was an illusion created by Chandra. The truth is that Ram is in Lanka along with Lakshman and a huge army of monkeys. That is why Ravan suddenly left in agitation. Soon there will be a terrible war, but don't worry, Sita. Ram will defeat and slay Ravan. If you want to give Ram a message, I will deliver it to him. Greatly relieved to hear this, Sita replied, O Saram, go at once and find out Ravan's plan instead of delivering a message. Is he going to return it to Ram, or is he going to fight with him? Saram went to the assembly and eavesdropped on Ravan and his ministers. Her missions accomplished, she returned to Sita and told her everything. Meanwhile, Ram and the army of monkeys discussed how they could best besiege the city. Devamrita said, together with my ministers, Anala, Sampati, Panasa, and Pramati, I took the form of bird and surveyed Ravan's military arrangement. Dear Ram, I am confident Ravan previously defeated Kuber by invading Lanka along with 6 million Rakshasas. You will also gain victory with these hordes of monkeys. Ram learned more from Vivasan and then ordered Nila, you will lead the attack on Prahasta at the east gate. You, Angyara, will attack Mahaparsva and Mahodara at the south gate. Hanuman, I want you to assault the west gate. Lakshman and I will charge Ravan at the north gate. Sugriv, Jambavan, and Vivasan, you will be in the center of our army to provide assistance wherever needed. Only 7 of us will fight in human shapes, Lakshman, Vivasan, his 4 ministers, and me. All others should fight as monkeys to be easily distinguishable from Rakshasas. The sun was setting, so Ram, Lakshman, and the monkey leaders climbed the peak of Suvela mountain to spend the night. Although darkness had already set in, they got a splendid view of Lanka from that mountain. With its innumerable twinkling lights, the cities looked as if it were gracefully suspended in space, but clearly the Rakshasas were mobilizing for war. In the morning, all the monkeys and their leaders were amazed to see the city's heavenly allure. This was still apparent despite the fire set by Hanuman. Lanka was huge but beautifully situated on the level peak of Karkuda mountain. Its gardens filled with flowering trees and singing birds. The walled city was 150 by 300 kilometers, and in the center stood Ravan's magnificent place supported by 1,000 pillars. As Ram admired the city, he spotted Ravan's atop the northern gate. Ravan had a canopy over his seat and was being reverently fanned by servants. Sugriv ordered many monkeys to go ahead and occupy Lanka's outer gardens. When Sugriv also spotted Ravan, he impetuously jumped from the peak of Mountain Suvela to the seat of the Raksasa king. Contemptuously staring at Ravan, Sugriv challenged him, I am a servant of Lord Ram and I will kill you this very day. Suddenly pouncing on Ravan, Sugriv knocked off his crown. Although startled, Ravan grabbed Sugriv and threw the monkey to the ground like a rubber ball. Sugriv bounced back, grabbed Ravan, and smashed him down with great force. Like opponents clutching in a fierce wrestling match, so did the 2 heroes fight. Nails and teeth ripped through flesh till both combatants were covered with blood and perspiration. Striking one another with fists and struggling for a long time, Sugriv and Ravan suddenly fell off the wall and landed between it and the moat. Finally, Ravan realized that he would not defeat Sugriv by mere physical strength, so he began to use his mystic powers. Understanding what Ravan was up to, Sugriv decided to abandon the fight, bounding into the air, and he returned to Ram. Having performed such a heroic feat, Sugriv felt joyful, and his followers enthusiastically jumped up and down. Rama embraced Sugriv, but also criticized him out of love. Ram said, You have acted rashly, for you dared to do something without my sanction. Besides, a king should never take such a risk, because a ruler's death is a great calamity for the nation. It was agreed, if Ravan had killed you, I certainly would have killed him in retaliation. Then, after installing Vivasan upon the throne in Lanka and Bharat in Ayodhya, I would have given my life for allowing me to be killed in my presence. Sugriv said, Seeing that vile rascal Ravan, I could not restrain myself. Rama said, Never mind, you display great heroism, and all the monkey warriors are determined to emulate your courage. Turning to Lakshman, Ram said, observing various omens, I foretell that prominent monkeys, bears, and Rakshasas will soon die. But let us not waste any more time. We will at once attack Lanka. Finally, before leading the charge, Ram sent Angada as his envoy to Ravan. Leaping high into the air, Angada swiftly reached Ravan, who again sat atop the northern gate surrounded by ministers. Staying somewhat apart, Angada announced, Angada is my name and the nephew of King Sugriv and successor to the throne of his kingdom. As Lord Ram's envoy, I have a message. The king of Rakshasa, now that all your pious credits are exhausted, I will slay you in retaliation for atrocities you committed against sages. Unless you voluntarily and promptly surrender to me, I will rid the entire earth of Rakshasas. Submit or else stand before me, and I will purify you with my deadly arrows. If you do not return Sita and bow before me, I advise you to take a good look at Lanka, for it will be your last. Ravan's rage flared up when he heard this. He ordered his ministers to capture Angada and kill him. 4 Rakshasas seized Angada, and he allowed them to, for he wanted to display superior prowess. Suddenly carrying with him the 4 Rakshasas who clutched his arm, Angada jumped to the top of Ravana's palace, but because of the force of his leap, those Rakshasas lost their grip halfway and fell to the ground before Ravana. Unworried, Angada kicked the palace roof till it started crumbling. Ravana could only stand and watch. Having thus vexed the Rakshasa king, Angada loudly roared and returned to Ram. Witnessing Angada's prowess, Ravan had premonitions about his own destruction, and he repeatedly and heavily sighed. Ram's mind, however, turned again to Sita, so he ordered his army, annihilate the Rakshasas. Hearing this, the monk responded, all victory to Ram and Lakshman. Lanka resounded with their confident clamors. The monkey warriors scaled the defense walls after breaking them with trees and stones. Seeing this, the Ravan ordered his troops to quickly advance, and the fierce conflict commenced. The Rakshasas struck monkeys with clubs and other weapons, but the monkeys countered them with trees, stones, and also their claws and teeth. Stationed on the defense wall, the Rakshasas slashed many monkeys simultaneously. Numerous monkeys forcibly dragged Rakshasas down, and soon the earth was a muddy mixture of flesh and blood. As Chandra fought with Jambumali, Angada with Indrajit, Mira with Ninkumba, and Sugriv with Prabhasa, the bodies of the perished warriors were flushed away by rivers of blood. When darkness fell, the monkeys still easily located the Rakshasas who wore visible golden armor and attacked them with great force. But since Rakshasas became more enlivened at night, both sides suffered heavy losses. In the darkness, hordes of Rakshasas attacked Ram, and their loud roaring created a voracious or raucous glare. But keeping the giant monkey Golangula on one side and Jambavan's brother Dumra on the other, Ram lit up the night sky with his golden shafts. Meanwhile, Angada managed to smash Indrajit's chariot and kill his driver. Suffering severe injury, Indrajit abandoned his disabled chariot and vanished. Remaining invisible, the enraged Indrajit released a volley of serpent arrows. Indrajit had received a benediction from Brahma that these snake arrows could bind Ram and Lakshman so tightly that they could hardly move. Ram dispatched 10 of the foremost monkeys, including Hanuman, Nila, and Angada, to search for Indrajit. But as these monkeys explored all directions, invisible Indrajit pierced them with innumerable arrows. Simultaneously, he shot arrows at Ram and Lakshman until blood profusely poured from their wounds. Indrajit announced, Ram, Lakshman, listen to me. Even Indra cannot see me. It will be my great pleasure to dispatch you both to Yamaraj abode with ceaseless storms of arrows. Indrajit relentlessly pierced Ram and Lakshman until there was no space left between the arrows stuck in their bodies. Having wounded, Ram dropped his bow and fell to the ground. Aghast, Lakshman gave up all hope and fainted. Beholding this pitiful sight, the monkeys, by now exceedingly despondent, wept with grief. As the monkey leaders surrounded Ram and Lakshman, Indrajit ecstatically announced to his followers, the 2 mighty warriors have been vanquished by a magical snake shafts permeated with Brahma's power. Nobody, not even Indra and all the demigods, can save Ram and Lakshman now. The Rakshasas enthusiastically billowed, Ram is dead. Indrajit has single-handedly conquered the army. Certain that Ram and Lakshman were dead, Indrajit, intoxicated by his supposed victory, proudly departed for Ravan's place. Sugriv and Vivasan heard to Ram and Lakshman, seeing them motionless, soaked with blood, and only slightly breathing. Sugriv was especially pained to see the two brothers ensnared by serpentine arrows. Vivasan took special care to comfort the grieving Sugriv. Wiping away Sugriv's tears, Vivasan said, "O king, I know that Ram and Lakshman can be revived. They will not die. Guard Ram carefully while I'll rally our army and restore the monkey's confidence." Meanwhile, as prominent monkeys guarded Ram and Lakshman, proud Indrajit went to Ravan to report his victory. When Ravan heard that Ram and Lakshman had been killed, he gave up his fear and anxiety. Dismissing Indrajit, he called for Sita's daughters. Confident that now she would submit to him, Ravan jubilantly said, "Ram and Lakshman have been slain by my incomparable son Indrajit." The wind announced this to Sita, "Then take her in the Pushpaka chariot and let her see her slain husband." Dismissing the Raksasis, Ravan had Ram's and Lakshman's death broadcast all over Lanka for the pleasure of the citizens. When Raksasis informed Sita of her husband's demise, she felt terribly shocked, collapsed, and hysterically wept. Along with their leader, Trijata, the Raksasis put Sita on the Pushpaka chariot. In moments, the chariot rose high into the sky and soon flew over the battlefield. There, Sita saw large numbers of slain monkeys and Rakshasas all over the battlefield. Then she spotted Ram and Lakshman. They lay on the ground, arrow-riddled and surrounded by many grieving monkeys. Ram's bow was cast aside, and Sita could hear Rakshasas rejoicing. Unable to contain herself or her grief, Sita loudly decried her fate. But Trijata approached Sita and said, "O princess, Ram and Lakshman are not dead, for the Pushpaka chariot will never carry a widow. Look at these monkeys. They are not in a state of confusion, but guard Ram and Lakshman with great care. Why would they do this if Ram and Lakshman were dead? And even from where I can see the luster in Ram and Lakshman's faces, a luster that can only depart at the time of death. Dear Sita, do not unnecessarily grieve, for your husband is still alive." Encouraged by Trijata's words, Sita returned to the Asoka Grove. Meditating on her husband's piteous condition, though she once again felt hopeless. Meanwhile, Ram regained consciousness. Seeing Lakshman by his side soaked with blood and almost lifeless, Ram said with anguish, "Even if I rescue Sita, it will be useless if Lakshman dies. If Lakshman dies, I will also give up my life, for I cannot bear the thought of returning to Ayodhya without him. How could I let him die in the battlefield in my presence and still face his mother?" Turning to Sugriv, Ram said, "The monkey warriors should now retreat, for they will be highly vulnerable without Lakshman and me to protect them. O noble king of the Vanars, you have my unlimited gratitude for your sincere friendship and the wonderful valor you have displayed while risking your life in my service." Tears rolled up in the eyes of all who heard Ram's sweet and pathetic words. Having restored the army to confidence, Vivasan returned, but when he saw Ram and Lakshman still lying on their bed of arrows, he broke down and cried. Sugriv embraced him and said, "Do not doubt that Ram and Lakshman will soon recover and defeat Ravan." Sugriv told Susen, his father-in-law, make arrangements for Ram and Lakshman's return to Kiskindha so they can safely recover from their wounds. Let all the monkeys accompany them. I will remain here alone. After single-handedly defeating Ravan, I will return to Kiskindha with Sita." Suddenly a fierce wind arose and lightning flashed through dark, dense clouds. The sea grew turbulent and mountains appeared to tremble. Tall trees were blown into the ocean and a gigantic bird-like personality appeared. On his arrival, all the snake arrows that bound Ram and Lakshman instantly fled. And by the mere touch of this superhuman personality, Ram and Lakshman's faces and bodies regained their shining complexions and normal strength. When the mysterious bird raised up Ram and embraced him in great happiness, Ram lovingly said, "We are both eternally indebted to you. If you think that we are worthy, please tell us who you are." The gigantic bird replied, "I am your eternal servant, Garuda, son of Minerva. Even all the demigods headed by Indra could not have released you from Indrajit's snake arrows. These snakes are the sons of Kadru and were converted into arrows by a mystic power that Indrajit received from Brahma. Dear Lord, please be careful while fighting the Rakshasas, for heroes like you are straightforward, but they are tricky. Before I depart, let me assure you that you will emerge victorious and recover your beloved Sita." Having circumambulated and embraced Ram, Garuda soared into the sky. All the monkeys jumped for joy. They created a great tumult by beating drums, lashing their tails about, and roaring like lions. Then they picked up trees and huge boulders ready to fight again. When Ravan heard the joyful clamor, he could guess that Ram and Lakshman had revived. He ordered some Rakshasas to ascertain this, and when they stood on the defense wall, they saw Ram and Lakshman alive and well. Fearfully they rushed back to Ravan, whose majestic face turned pale when the suspicions were confirmed. The battle resumed in all its fierceness. With huge rocks and trees, the monkeys smashed the Rakshasas and tore them to shreds with their sharp teeth and nails. Because of the monkeys' superior prowess, the Rakshasas panicked and fled from the battlefield. Seeing his army retreat, Ravan dispatched many leading warriors, including Devamrita, Kampana, and Prahasta. The fighting intensified for a long time. Ultimately, Hanuman killed Devamrita by cracking his skull with a huge boulder. Angada ended Kampana's life while another enormous boulder. And Nila slew Prahasta by hurling a crowd of rocks on his head. Ravan was tormented when he heard about their deaths. Addressing his ministers, the Rakshasa king said, "Disdain for my powerful enemies is no longer befitting. Excuse me. I myself shall now fight in the front line." In Sri Lanka, Ravan put a large army on alert in case the monkeys would take advantage of his absence. Then Ravan mounted his splendid chariot and surrounded by his army left the city. His entrance onto the battlefield divided the monkeys' ranks. Ram and Lakshman took up their bows in anticipation. When Ram caught sight of Ravan, he exclaimed, "Because of his extraordinary effulgence and prowess, the Rakshasa king is difficult to behold. Still, now that he has come within view, at last I can unleash my anger at him." The battle began and Sugriv picked up a mass of rocks, darted forward, and hurled it at Ravan. With his arrows, the Rakshasa king effortlessly shattered the rocks, and he released another shaft that deeply cut Sugriv. When Sugriv, moaning with pain, was thus crushed to the earth, the Rakshasas exulted over Ravan's heroic feat. 6 more monkey chiefs picked up boulders and rushed at Ravan, who again easily thwarted the assault. And on it, Ravan retaliated and wounded these heroic monkeys, while slaughtering numerous others with his undying streams of arrows. Finally, having become hard-pressed, the monkeys took shelter of Lord Ram. When Ram proceeded towards Ravan, Lakshman begged for his permission to fight first, single-handedly. Rama consented, and as Lakshman approached Ravan for battle, Hanuman assisted him by hurling rocks before the Rakshasa king arrows. But after some time, Hanuman could no longer contain himself and darted at Ravan. With his right arm raised above his head, Hanuman bellowed, "The benediction received from Brahma does not grant you immunity from death at the hands of monkeys. With a single blow of my mighty fist, I will strike you dead." Ravan said, "Try and hit me once, and if you do, I will strike you dead." Hanuman said, "You're a fool. Don't you remember how easily I slew your son Aksa?" Hanuman staggered backward, but when he recovered his balance, he angrily retaliated by violently smacking Ravana with his palm. Ravan was visibly shaken, and most onlookers applauded Hanuman, including the demigods and sages watching from the sky. When Ravan recovered, he praised Hanuman as a worthy foe. Still, Hanuman said, "I see that my prowess is insignificant, for you are still alive. Now, if you still consider me a worthy adversary, hit me once more." The enraged Ravan hammered Hanuman's chest with his clenched fist, and Hanuman reeled backwards, leaving Hanuman aside. Ravan eyed Nila and pierced him with a steady point of arrows. Although greatly harassed, Nila took up a gigantic rock and hurled it at Ravan, but the Rakshasa king shattered it. When Hanuman recovered, he restrained himself. Because he did not want to attack someone already embroiled in battle. As Nila uprooted one tree after another, Ravana splintered them with arrows, while simultaneously oppressing other monkey soldiers. To avoid Ravana's arrows, Nila shrank in the size and jumped on Ravana's flagpole. This incensed the Rakshasa king. Nila's darting back and forth between Ravana's flagpole and bow astonished Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman. Ravan Though appreciating the daring feat, invoked a powerful fire weapon that struck Nila's chest. Nila sunk to his knees, severely wounded. With Nila out of the way, Ravan approached Lakshman. Harsh words keenly sharpened their fighting spirit, so Lakshmana easily countered Ravan's first 7 arrows, excited to fight. Ravan released a volley of arrows, but Lakshmana neutralized them all. Eager to remove his adversary, Ravana picked up the lance given to him by Brahma and violently hurled it. Lakshmana vainly tried to counteract it. The lance pierced his chest and he collapsed in pain. Lakshmana was losing consciousness and Ravana wished to capture him, but as the Rakshasa grabbed him, the son of Sumitra exhibited his unlimited prowess as the direct expansion of Lord Vishnu. So even though Ravana could lift mountains with all his strength, he could not pick up Lakshmana. Ravana remounted his chariot, and Hanuman dashed forward and ferociously struck his chest. With blood flowing from his 10 mouths, 20 ears, and 20 eyes, Ravana lost consciousness. The monkeys rejoiced. And Hanuman went to Lakshmana's aid. The lance left Lakshmana's body and returned to Ravana, its mission completed. Out of affection, Lakshmana made himself light, so Hanuman could carry him to Ram. When Lakshmana was lifted up, his wounds were entirely healed by Lord Vishnu's inconceivable potency. Meanwhile, Ravana regained consciousness and took up his bow. Because Ravana had struck down so many monkeys, Ram decided to fight Ravana himself. Hanuman offered Ram his shoulders and thus mounted. Ram swiftly approached Ravana and challenged him. Despite his animosity towards Ravana first unleashed arrows at Hanuman but could not deter him. Thus Ram could ride right up to Ravana's chariot and demolish it. Ram shot an effulgent shaft that deeply sliced into Ravana's chest. Reeling dizzily, Ravana lost hold of his bow. Cutting off Ravana's flag, Ram said, "Slaying innumerable monkeys was a heroic feat, but it must have exhausted you. So I will refrain from killing you now. Return to Lanka and rest. Later I will fight you again." This defeat and Ram's words crushed Ravana's pride. Downcast, Ravana returned to Lanka and Ram and Lakshmana extracted arrows from wounded monkeys. Having witnessed Ravana's humiliation, joyful sages and demigods felt confident that their mission was almost completely accomplished. Ravana, however, sat upon his throne, utterly despondent. Summoning his ministers, Ravana ordered him, "Awaken Kumbhakarna. No one excels him in battle. 9 days ago he fell asleep because of Rama's curse. Once asleep, he sleeps for 6 months continuously. If he fails me now, then what is the use of his unparalleled prowess?" Ravana's ministers and 10,000 of assistants went to Kumbhakarna's subterranean abode, which measured 15 square kilometers. They were unsure how to awaken him before his natural hour, but they brought an enormous amount of food and also perfumes and garlands to try to rouse him. As soon as the Rakshasas opened the door to Kumbhakarna's cave, hurricane-like winds exhaled from his nostrils, blew them back. At last, after entering the room with difficulty, they attempted to awaken the sleeping giant. The Rakshasas laid bills of meat and vats of blood in front of Kumbhakarna's face. When Kumbhakarna did not stare, they smeared sandalwood paste and perfumes over his bristly-haired body, and even though they loudly proclaimed his glories, Kumbhakarna remained sound asleep. They tried roaring, clapping, and stomping their feet next to Kumbhakarna's ears, and later intensified the tumult with crescendos of conches, deafening drums, and ear-splitting cymbals, but to no avail. Even pushing and pulling Kumbhakarna's arms and legs, and beating his body with hammers and clubs would not spare him. The main problem of Kumbhakarna's tempestuous exhalations, when he would breathe in and out, the 10,000 Rakshasas surrounding him moved back and forth like waves. When all failed to rouse Kumbhakarna, from elephants, horses, camels, and donkeys were prodded to walk over his body. But despite all this, Kumbhakarna did not wake up. His ears and poured buckets of waters in his earholes, nothing. Finally, only when they beat Kumbhakarna with clubs studded with nails and loaded 1,000 elephants over his body did the giant Rakshasas fear, for it seemed someone had touched him. Famished and drowsy, Kumbhakarna stretched his arms and raised and yawned and did not notice the boulders some Rakshasas were still throwing at him. Yawning again and again, colossal Kumbhakarna finally got up and greedily ate all the meat and drank all the blood he saw. When it was clear that Kumbhakarna was satisfied, the Rakshasas came before him with joint palms. Kumbhakarna glanced at them and asked, "Why are we thinking untimely? Some danger must have happened that only I can counteract. Otherwise no one would dare disturb me." Vipaksa, a minister, responded, "Lanka is besieged by an army of huge monkeys led by Ram and Lakshmana. Many Raksasa heroes have perished, and Ram released Ravana after defeating him." Fully roused, Kumbhakarna roared, "I will drink Ram's and Lakshmana's blood. I will not see Ravana before I have eradicated the seeds of his fear." Damodar suggested, "Perhaps it is better to see Ravana first. After all, he is your elder brother and king." Some Raksasas then sped ahead to report to Ravana. Only after intense endeavors could they finally awaken Kumbhakarna. "Would you like to see him first, or should he straight away enter the battlefield and fight Ram?" Ravana replied, "Kumbhakarna should come here first so I can properly honor him, but to ensure that comes from good spirits, supply him meat and wine before I see him." Meanwhile, that Kumbhakarna had gotten up, obeying Ravana's orders, the Raksasas brought him mountains of meat and 200 buckets of wine. Gorging himself, Kumbhakarna replenished his vinegar. Thereafter, when the colossal Raksasas came out of his cavern, the monkeys were sowing to perplex out of fear, some fell to the earth. Those more courageous took shelter of Ram, while those less courageous fled. To frighten his enemies even more, Kumbhakarna expanded his already gigantic size before reducing it to enter the palace. When Ram saw Kumbhakarna, he exclaimed, "Never in my life have I seen such a gigantic living being. O Vidasan, who was this monster towering above us?" Vidasan replied, "Kumbhakarna, the sage Vishrava's son. He is the biggest Raksasa and has defeated even Ramaraj. Hard pressed in battle, Ravana has prematurely awakened Kumbhakarna. In this way, seeing his hideous form, our soldiers are now petrified. To pacify them, I suggest that we tell them that Kumbhakarna is merely an immense mechanical device." Ram ordered Nila, who was back on his feet, to rally the monkeys and attack the city gates. This a fierce battle enraged even while Kumbhakarna, along with thousands of his followers, was inside Ravana's palace. Deeply troubled, Ravana set on his post-put chariot. Seeing his brother, however, immediately put Ravana in lighter spirits. Ravana warmly embraced Kumbhakarna and sat beside him. Kumbhakarna said, "O king, don't worry. I promise that I will restore Ram and Lakshmana and also all the monkeys healed by the Sugriv and Hanuman. These so-called heroes have played havoc with our army only because I was absent from the battlefield. Now, you shall see the enemy's insignificance in the face of my supreme might." Reflecting on his colossal brother's prowess, Ravana felt rejuvenated and placed a gold necklace and garland around his neck. Kumbhakarna then took up a brutal spear and prepared to depart. Having put on impenetrable armor, Kumbhakarna circumambulated Ravana and bowed before him. Ravana embraced Kumbhakarna again and offered his blessings in return.
Basta, atong 4. Right.
10 minutes na lang. Saan ka na tumigil, bro?
Yeah, Abhishek.
Hare Krishna. Continue reading from the Ramayana. So, bali, giyera na lang ito, labanan na ito ng armies ni Lord Ram o Chandra against Ravana. Approaching the battlefield, Kumbhakarna, ano to, kapatid ni Ravana, expanded his body until it was 600 bow lengths tall and 100 bow lengths wide. And yet, even though determined to kill Ram and Lakshman and devour the monkeys, Kumbhakarna experienced fearful omens. Meteors streaked across the sky, his left arm throbbed, his left eye twitched, and a vulture alighted in his spear. But the proud and overconfident Kumbhakarna ignored such inauspiciousness. Stepping over the defensive wall, Kumbhakarna entered the battlefield. All the monkeys panicked and fled. Angad managed to rally the army. The numerous trees and boulders they flung at Kumbhakarna all shattered in impact. Kumbhakarna's retaliation was so vicious. And sweeping the monkeys panicked and fled again, some into the depths over cliffs and into the ocean. Angad encouraged the monkeys. It is better to gloriously die in battle than to flee in the hope and easy life. Cowards have to suffer their relatives' ridicule, insults, more painful than death. Still, the monkeys continued to flee for their life. Only when Angad assured them that Ram would certainly kill Kumbhakarna did he gradually return to the battlefield. So ito si Kumbhakarna, napakalaki nga ito, parang higante, no? Super giants. Tapos talagang takot na takot yung mga unggoy, no? Yung mga sundalo ni Ram. Yung iba natatakbuhan na. Tapos si Angad is pamangkin ni Sugrid. Namatay yung tatay niya, si Pali. Tapos in-encourage niya yung mga unggoy na bumalik. Ibali na raw mamatay na nasa laban ka kaysa yung tatakbo ka, no? Dahil nakakahiya daw. Sabi niya, yung mga insulto ay mas masakit pa raw sa kamatayan. So talagang i-encourage niya agad na lumaban yung mga unggoy. The monkeys renewed their assault on Kumbhakarna, but every time he wielded his massive club, he hammered down thousands of them. Repeatedly, the huge Raksasa grabbed as many as 30 monkeys in his hand and stuffed them into his mouth. Kinakain niya yung Kumbhakarna, yung mga unggoy. Hanggang 30 kayang kainin, isang ano lang. Greedy threw a huge boulder at Kumbhakarna, but it missed its target and crushed many other Raksasa soldiers instead. From the sky, Hanuman tried to bombard Kumbhakarna with slabs of stone, but the colossal Rakshasa easily warded him off with his hands. While Kumbhakarna picked up his spear and rushed at the mountain, Hanuman tried to block him by hurling a massive rocks, but to no effect. Kumbhakarna's retribution was swift. He threw his spear which pierced Hanuman's chest, and the monkey hero cried out in agony and vomited blood. Seeing Hanuman's plight, the Rakshasas rejoiced, while the monkeys ran in all directions. Rishabh, Sarabha, Nila, Gavaksa, and Gandhavatana then pounced on Kumbhakarna together. Still, to the giant Rakshasa, their powerful blows felt like tender caresses. Kumbhakarna caught Rishabh, squeezed him unconscious in his hand, and threw him to the ground. Kumbhakarna then wounded the other 4 heroes and left them unconscious. This infuriated the other monkeys, and all at once they attacked Kumbhakarna by the thousands. They climbed his body as though it were a mountain. But as the monkeys beat Kumbhakarna with their sharp teeth, he grabbed him as fast as he could and shoveled him into his gaping mouth. Although some of them escaped through his nostrils and ears after entering his mouth, Kumbhakarna devoured innumerable monkeys. Nakain Kumbhakarna mga unggoy. Thus Kumbhakarna's wrath descended into the battlefield. As the monkeys took shelter of Lord Ram, Angad suddenly rushed at Kumbhakarna and flung a big rock to his head. But in turn, Kumbhakarna rushed at Angad and hurled another spear. Angad dodged it and pounded Kumbhakarna on the chest. Dazed, Kumbhakarna fell, but quickly stood up and smacked Angad in the back of his hand. Almost unconscious, Angad was led aside. Kumbhakarna next took a spear and charged Sugrid, who quickly grabbed a boulder to meet his foe. Sugrid flung the rock at Kumbhakarna's chest, but it simply crumbled to pieces. The Rakshasas shouted with joy, but the monkeys became despondent. Roaring in his rage, Kumbhakarna violently threw his spear. But Hanuman, who had followed the duel attentively, saw Sugrid's plight, suddenly jumped into the air and caught the spear. Hanuman broke it in half over his knee, and the monkeys roared with delight. Slightly disheartened, Kumbhakarna tore off a mass of rocks and hurled it at Sugrid. violently struck. Sugriv collapsed and lay unconscious. Kumbhakarna swiftly grabbed Sugriv and attacking him under his armpit, carried him back to Lanka. Hanuman thought, if Sugriv is taken prisoner or ghost is lost, I must find myself and slay Kumbhakarna. But then Hanuman considered that Sugriv would soon regain consciousness and free himself. If the king has to be rescued by another, he will certainly become disheartened, Hanuman thought. With Sugriv in his grid, Kumbhakarna entered Lanka. Sugriv yung king ng mga unggoy, tapos nawala na siya ng malay. Ilagay na siya dito ni Kumbhakarna, tapos pabalik na si Kumbhakarna sa Sri Lanka sa palasyo. Tapos ito na tauhan ko siya si Sugriv. With Sugriv in his grid, Kumbhakarna entered Lanka. The citizens rejoiced and joyously showered their victorious hero with fried grains and scented water. But these were exactly the offerings that helped Sugriv regain consciousness. Assessing the situation, he struggled to get free, and with his sharp nails he tore off Kumbhakarna's earlobes. Like that's here, Kumbhakarna. Splitting open Kumbhakarna's sides with his toes, Sugriv also bit off the Raksasa's nose. In agony, Kumbhakarna angrily threw Sugriv down. Finally, Sugriv jumped into the air and returned to Ram in an instant. Famished and enraged, Kumbhakarna then took up his huge hammer and again entered the enemy ranks to eat monkeys, snatching not only monkeys but also Rakshasas by the handful. He stuffed them in his mouth and chomped them all till streams of blood and fat spurted from the corners of his mouth. Although the monkeys tried to take shelter of Ram, Kumbhakarna ran here and there, and with his outstretched arms, he encircled hundreds at a time. Lakshman suddenly attacked Kumbhakarna with a torrent of arrows. The giant Rakshasa, however, disdainfully warded him off and said, I'll fight Ram, not his little brother. Lakshman then pointed to Ram, so Kumbhakarna turned to him. Ram swiftly invoked a Rudra weapon and flung it at the on-rushing giant Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna staggered when the weapon penetrated his chest and he dropped his club. His other weapons were strewn about. Many monkeys then pounced on Kumbhakarna to take advantage of his setback. But the Rakshasa beat him back with his fist. Kumbhakarna grabbed a mass of rocks and violently rushed toward Ram. Effortlessly and promptly, Ram scattered the rocks with 7 arrows. Unfortunately, the chunks of debris knocked down more than 200 monkey soldiers. Lakshman told Ram, drinking blood has so intoxicated Kumbhakarna that he indiscriminately devoured monkeys and Rakshasas. Thousands of monkeys could go and climb all over Kumbhakarna's body. Under their weight, he will easily be defeated. From all directions, innumerable monkeys started to crawl over Kumbhakarna. He tried to shake them off and simultaneously rummaged around for food. Seeing an opportunity to attack, Ram stretched his bowstring back to his ear. Hare Krishna. So we'll start reading now from the Ramayana. We'll continue again. I'm not sure what time shall be able to continue. So for now, we're going to have bhajans. Jai Hare Krishna. Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki.